Hello, how are you? This is Rudy Lozano, broker for PRG Platinum. Thank you for joining us live as well as on Zoom. Today, Wednesday, we are covering the latest NAR forms having to do with buyer's representation agreement. Um, I took a call this morning from another agent that's going to actually transition in, and she was telling me that her broker hadn't even provided any advice and opinion on how things were going to go. And luckily enough, here lately, the title companies are stepping in to offer training through their attorneys on how they're going to handle it, not the title company. So I wanted to take a quick minute and tell you how we're going to handle it because it's different now. Because before you could get the transaction within 10 days of closing and provide your paperwork, and we would send out your CDA. But now there's a compliance piece that we need to fill because technically you're not allowed to show one house unless you have the buyer's rep agreement signed by your buyer, whether it be a wet signature or an electronic signature. There is an attestation in the system now, according to some changes from Sabor, where, okay, if you're going to schedule the showing, you do have a buyer's rep agreement, right? Okay, well, you can check that check mark. But technically, to be in compliance with the lawsuit, to be in compliance with TREC and TAR and everybody else, you really do need to have the paperwork in place. You cannot show property unless you have a buyer's rep agreement executed, whether wet signature or electronic signature. We have to create that client relationship up front before showing that first property. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples on the short form and the long form of how all that's going to take place. Um, The compensation as of yesterday was still listed on MLS. It will not, it will stop here in the next few days. Um, so it will be the responsibility of the broker or the listing agent to have that compensation somewhere. I'm a little bit concerned about that because I mean, one of the changes that I liked on the contract that the real estate commission took a responsibility from the agents was the fact that they never didn't want the buyer to deliver the option to the listing agent or the seller. All of a sudden, your earnest money and your option have to be delivered to title for better accounting and stuff, right? The second option and the third option, if you need to extend, can be handled directly with the seller or with the agent. But the first delivery of monies has to be with the title company. Okay, whether it be a money order, a cashier's check, or a wire. Why in the world would they give agents the responsibility to control the compensation on their own websites or give the broker that responsibility? Because not everybody, unfortunately, even though we're licensed and we have to abide to a code of ethics, I could see how that could be manipulated in the future just because the agent wants to make more money, right? Depending on their financial situation. I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of people putting themselves in a compromising ethics position. I mean, so that's the reason my advice to you guys is do not show a home without confirming compensation before showing that home because different conversations need to be had. So let me start with the short, okay? Your first form is the residential buyer tenant representation agreement short form. This form would be used when you meet somebody at the grocery store, at a coffee shop, or most importantly, like at an open house. Okay, well, you don't like this house, but there's three others in the subdivision. I'm about to close up for the day. How about I show you these other three homes that are maybe a two-story, master down, or whatever. But hey, I'm meaning for you to sign this paperwork for me. It's a one-page form. It's just we're required now to disclose that who we represent in the transaction, and I represent you. Okay, I'm going to negotiate on your behalf. Put your interest first. And oh, by the way, I'm going to try to negotiate my compensation directly with the builder or the seller. So, can I get you to sign this for me? It's only for a couple of days or through the end of the week. Don't make it too difficult. You don't go line by line by line by line by line by line by line. Because another word for agreement is contract. The moment that you start dissecting all the fine print, hey, me and you, in Bear County or the surrounding counties from today's date through next Friday. And of course, I'm providing you with full services. And then, of course, my compensation will be up to 3%. But I'm going to, once again, I'm going to try to get that from the builder, the seller, or I can ask for sales concessions from the seller. And then, of course, you're at one of our listings right now. So you would be the first to be exposed to any inventory that my company has before anybody else. So I'm going to check off intermediary. Okay. So please sign. Please sign. Don't make it too complicated. Get it signed, and then start your journey and show them those homes that you meant to show them. Now, let's say you do decide to work with them and you like one another, and all of a sudden, my suggestion is to convert it into the long form because both of them do almost similar things, but um, the main thing is that the long form outlines your fiduciary duties, all the things that you're going to do, and then it also outlines their responsibility. They can't just walk into a new home builder community. They have a client relationship with you. It's kind of like being an attorney. Hey, if the police come knocking on your door, you tell them you have an attorney. You don't talk to anybody. You call me. I'm your attorney, right? And in this case, you need to be able to have that relationship with them to be able to advise them that. And that's the reason that these buyers' orientations are going to become ever so important. You need to sit down with your people and explain a lot of knowledge to them of what the process of procedure is going to be, the appraisal process, and what happens when you order the home inspection, and what happens at title, A, B, C, D, and a million things that we have to do. So I'm providing you full services. I'm going to grab you by the hand and I'm going to take you through these million steps that we're needing to complete. Okay, so sell value at that moment. You're not doing it by yourself. I'm going to fill out all the paperwork. I'm going to review it with you. We could either do it in person. We could sit down. I could send you a DocuSign. Mirror your client. Most people are like, I love the house. Submit the offer. Let's go. Let's run. And then there's some people that want to read everything. Okay. Um, so the short form are open houses, short term relationship, just so that you can hook the buyer. And then once you decide that you are going to take him on as a client, alrighty, Mr. Pete Smith, we saw this house, you love it and everything. Um, we're still within our short form days, but now I'm going to provide you with the offer to purchase, all the addenda, and then I'm also going to update the short form into the long form. That is a compliance piece, like I said, from my broker as well as the real estate commission. Okay. It's all about protecting you, Mr. Buyer or Mr. Consumer. Okay. The only thing that has changed is that now we have all this paperwork we have to fill out. And then I'm not treating you, this is actually in your best interest because I'm not treating you like a prospect or as a consumer. I am treating you as a client. Based on this lawsuit and the requirements set forth by TREC, we now have to establish a client relationship. You either work for the seller through an exclusive right to list, or you work for a buyer through a short form or a long form. But no doubt about it, the agent that I got off the phone with, she's already sold 28 properties in the last, 12 months. And she said, "Oh, my broker never required a buyer's representation agreement." I'm like, "Well, we've been requiring it for over 10 years because it protects you, the licensee." Okay. And it nips it in the bud that you were able to give advice and opinion. There's no doubt about it. You didn't represent the seller, you represented them. Okay. Who doesn't want representation? Where, hey, I'm going to put your interests above my own, right? So, client relationship, no sub agency. That's the reason that the compliance part will change. Because before, within 10 days of closing, for those of you guys that weren't using a buyer's rep agreement, you could get it to us, or hey, I need you to sign this, and da 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 da. All of a sudden, you sent over a DocuSign, and then we would have it in our file. But then the buyer's representation package said the 20th, but you went under contract on the 1st. So you can't do that anymore. to the point that we're going to have to do the compliance piece up front. If you met him on Saturday, you showed him houses on Saturday and Sunday, your short form takes you through Friday, and then you find a house, you upgrade it to the long form. I would extend the long form for 6 months. That encompasses significantly more time because I mean you might go under contract, but then they might cancel and then still continue looking for two, three more homes or decide to transition to the new home uh, industry. So what ends up happening is that at that moment you had the short form, you transition into the long form, but both of them were executed prior to you going under contract. Because I'm thinking E&O guys, because trust me, our industry's under attack. There are already sellers going, I'm not paying the commission because I'm being told that I don't have to pay it. But they're not understanding the full spectrum. They're not understanding this organic climate that you have to also resort to the supply and demand principles. If the market is deteriorating, rates are horrible, there's an abundance of inventory. The last thing that a seller needs to do is go, I'm not going to pay a buyer's agent. Because guess what the buyer's agent's going to do? They're going to take their client somewhere else. All right. It's simple as that. I'm not going to argue with you, but you need to verify if compensation will be paid. Okay. So uh, there is a lot of, I mean, I've been trying to log onto these groups and wow, it's overwhelming and people have different philosophies. There's different coaches that are saying that you do have to expose your client to that, to every listing in that zip code or that school district. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Because when you sit down and do your buyer's orientation, which is the short form or the long form, and you tell them what you're going to do for them, you're going to tell them the menu of services that you're going to provide. Nowhere in that conversation should be till the very end should be about a school district and a square footage and the master down, all those kinds of things. Now, this is what I do for you, and we're needing to decide if we're going to work with one another, if we're a good fit. I met you at an open house. I like you, and we'll execute it for a few days, and then okay, we found you something, and I like you. We ended up figuring out that we know similar people, and now we love one another. Right? Happens all the time. So then that's when you would transition to the long form for your protection. Okay, more documentation is best, and now with DocuSign, it's not a big deal. So, um, but at the end of the day, when you're doing your buyer's orientation, you have to have the tough conversations. Mr. Buyer, okay, there's changes in our industry. And I know that you met, um, I mean, I know that you probably know about this NAR settlement and this NAR lawsuit. Okay. Um, but at the end of the day, I want to go ahead and address it with you. Okay. There are many sellers that are offering compensation. Nothing has changed. Builders are offering four, five, six, and seven. The difference is that now sellers are thinking that they have the option. But that all has to do with a number of things. First and foremost, the commitment is already built into the price. In the future, if there will be an adjustment downward if there's no closing costs and no commission. The appraiser will have to adjust that downward because then it's going to be treated like square footage or a third car garage, right? Apples to apples comparison. So if you have that seller that doesn't pay commission and doesn't pay closing costs, well then there will need to be an adjustment downward. But either way, for the sellers that do compensation for closing costs, I'm sure that there's going to be sufficient amount of comparables where the appraiser can do an apples to apples comparison, right? But either way, the commission is built into the price. The seller technically isn't paying for it. The buyer is actually financing it into the sales price. If you were going to list at 194, well, and the buyer decides to pay 200, that's $6,000. I want to buy it at 200,000 because the commission is 6,000, and in reality, I'm paying 194. The commission to the agent's already included in the price, right? So, no doubt about it. Supply and demand principles will need to take place to be able to determine if that house will sell or not sell. Supply and demand. If there's 10 houses in that subdivision and three sellers aren't paying compensation, it's okay to go, Mr. Buyer, thank you for coming into our lovely office. I'm saying hello to Mary Smith that referred you to me. I'm so honored and privileged that that happened. But I do want to have this conversation with you. Is um, we're going to do more than one thing today. I'm going to show you what the process, the procedure, the protocol is to be able to make homeownership happen for you. But at the same time, my loan officer here is on standby in the office or by phone, or you can log on to their website. We're going to get you pre qualified today. We're going to determine if you have the income, the assets, and the credit to be able to purchase a home. And if you need some work, it's not going to be a no. It's going to be maybe not right now, but we'll help you accomplish home ownership. That is one of the things that I help you with. I never forget about you. Okay. Some people can buy now, and some people have to wait 6 months to save down payment, closing costs, or just get their credit where it needs to be. Okay. But today it's going to be a very productive meeting. I just needing to let you know all the million things that I'm going to do for you. Okay. And then, of course, determine if you want to work with one another. Okay. So, one of the questions that I have to ask you, because there are some changes in the marketplace, Mr. Buyer, I am not sure if you're in a position to cover my compensation in the event that the seller is not offering compensation. Would you like me to expose you to homes in which you will be responsible to pay me? And if they say no, okay. So what I'm understanding, Mr. Buyer, is that if there's 10 properties in a community and three of them, or let's say one is not paying compensation, you don't want me to expose you to those three homes. Is that correct? Because you're not going to have enough money to pay me if for whatever the reason the seller is not offering compensation. Am I understanding you correctly? Yes. Okay. So there's seven houses in Wild Horse or in Alamo Ranch, and we're going to look at these seven houses, and hopefully one will reach the lease. Okay. You're not steering. You're not being unethical. You're not redlining. There's no conversation when you had that. What I'm going to expose you to, and what I'm going to expose you and what I'm not going to expose you. There was no mention of even a community that came afterwards. Okay, so that's the reason you don't even want to talk about where they want to live. You want to talk about if you want to take them on as a client first. Okay, so I had somebody yesterday that said, "No, no, I'm not going to pay you, but there's a chance that the seller will pay me." I said, "But then I don't want you to limit the inventory." At that moment, you have to make a decision if you take him on as a client or not. I mean, and it was like 180, $200,000 client. Our agent in the office said, "No, I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to work with you." So, because the guy was already aggressive and grumpy, and you dictate you're a business within a business. Okay, I'm your sponsored broker, but I will always support the decisions that you make for your business. If you want to cancel somebody or terminate somebody, I will back you up. If they're a difficult seller, if they're a difficult buyer, unrealistic, and then they're wanting to see all the inventory in the city of San Antonio. I'm like, no, you have to set boundaries and determine if you want to continue. Okay. So so once again, conduct your business on a client level. So that way you are in compliance. You'll need to turn in your paperwork the moment that you go under contract. Because if somebody files a complaint against you, the first thing that the real estate community, the real estate commission will do will send me a letter by email. And they're going to want a response from me on what transpired. At that moment, I have to call the agent. Hey, what happened? Da, 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 da. Okay. Well, give me your paperwork, give me your file. And we don't really have it in the portal. So what happened? Uh, I explain it. I get it back to the real estate commission, and they can. I've been involved in cases for a year where they keep on asking and asking and asking for more information, more documentation, those kinds of things. You never know. It depends on who you get. Okay. But for the most part, I'm very involved there to try to minimize the risk for you guys. Okay. And then they email me, and then they usually include you too. But I see where, and for if for whatever the reason the buyer didn't know or didn't understand that something in the process, or you all of a sudden splurged on them, oh no, well, the builder's only paying two, you needed to pay me one, and your paperwork doesn't reflect that on day one, and then all of a sudden you close, you better have an amendment. Or on both of your forms, in the existing market, I recommend you put up to three or four, and in the new home market, put up to seven or eight. And why that figure of 8% in the new home market is because you don't know if you're going to be stuck with them for a day or a week or for 2 years while you select the land, install a well, install a septic system, infrastructure, civil engineering. You have to go through four or five different custom home builders. See where I'm headed at? I have a good friend that just closed on his home. It took him almost 24 months to close on his home. It was like 1.5 million on a hill, gorgeous home and whatever, but he was struggling with the contractors. They wouldn't show up. Okay. So he was stuck for almost 2 years. So, mhm.
My question is, of course, all the builders are going to pay commission or not? We
No, no,
have
no.
to double check.
It's still your responsibility. It's your compensation, guys. Whether it's the builder, a foreclosure, existing market, it is your responsibility to take clients. I have agents in this office where I tell them, well, stop taking your clients to Lennar. Take them. I would start up and bring them down if they still want to go with them, but at least you've exposed them to Rosh Coleman, Gia Horton, KB, and then they ended up at Lennar. But once again, you need to dictate where you're going to take your client. Yes, you might like the salesperson, but you know, you really have to think long term there too. I mean, um, as far as what their needs are, I mean, because no doubt about it, guys, you have to interview your client and what their expectations are. Because if you know that they're going to build 10,000 homes there and they're giving away the farm, they're offering a 2.99 interest rate or 3.9 or 4.9. They're offering all closing costs. They're going to pay you 4%. And then there is a chance that your buyer will need to sell in 3 to 4 years. And if they're in direct competition with the builder in 3 or 4 years, you have just done them a horrible injustice. That's the reason that when you go to a new home community, you need to ask how many phases they're going to have. Because if they're going to have 20 phases, oh, wow. I bought my home in 2014. The builder is still in my community. As a matter of fact, they're building a home right across the street from me. What a nightmare.
Yes, and maybe before to show houses to our possible buyer or client, maybe we have to double check with the builder or the houses that we are going to show by phone, or maybe they have on their website. I don't know how they are going.
Well, I think that what the question is that how are you going to verify with the builder what the compensation is? And I'll be honest with you, there's a builder out there that even on their website, on their email, they say it's 4%, and all of a sudden, and they change it to two. We know who that builder is, right? Well, to me, that's deceptive trade practices, right? But it's your job to verify that. Okay. Same thing in the existing market. Because the builder, they're the owners. They're going to be, hey, realtors, bring your clients. We love you. We're going to pay you 7% commission. We're going to pay all closing costs. We've just done major price reductions. We love you. Forget about the existing market. We want you to come bring your clients here. All
And,
right.
and the other question, because I suppose on MLS after August 17th, they are going to show their commission.
Yeah.
You have to prove before to the agent and
Correct.
but
Sure.
if they say, I was thinking, well, yes, we are going to pay the 10%. And then finally they decided not to pay.
Well, what it is that that's the reason that I was talking about that is that there are going to be some questionable ethics or questionable business practices in place because they could have 3% on the website. And then all of a sudden, you submit an offer, and then all of a sudden, they want to pay you one. The way you're going to guarantee that that's not the case, it gets more complicated with a for sale by owner, but compensation agreement between brokers. If you know it's today's Wednesday, right? And you know you're going to go show seven houses on Saturday or Sunday, You dictate that journey. You're the captain of your ship. You better have this compensation agreement fully executed, reflecting what the compensation is going to be. This form will not be in associated docs. Nothing having to do with compensation amount is allowable. Compensation between brokers. Okay, I'm going to show your house on Saturday at 11 o'clock, but I'm needing for you to verify or validate what the compensation is going to be. Okay, well, we're only paying two and a half, or hey, we're paying three, or hey, we're paying three plus a $2,000 bonus. Okay, okay, just in case I'm going to submit an offer to you, execute this compensation between brokers for me. So then that way it's in writing. It's a TREC or a card form. Okay, because then you don't want to play any games with your commission, right? They don't. What if they don't? Yes. Okay, well, you have to do the right thing and send it. And then I would go to their website. Every website provider in the country is working on realtor websites and broker websites to be able to have that disclosed. There's no doubt about it. Compensation cannot be on the multiple listing service. You can have comments such as buyer's agency welcome, okay, but no amount. That lets you know that, oh, there's a possibility that they're going to pay. But then you don't know if it's going to be a point or 3 points, right? It's still your responsibility to verify how much that compensation is. So the problem that I see with all of that is that we, in our office, we have, almost 200 agents and over 230 listings. We're going to get bombarded with phone calls. We're gonna we're gonna encourage them to call you as an agent. That way you can reply and send them a text. Don't need to verify, or you need to log on to our website, and take a picture of it, whatever you need to verify.
All the brokers have website.
Absolutely. If you don't, a website costs $29.
So, so the website would have the listing, and it's looking on the listing on the website somewhere to say seller is paying
3%. Yes. So my recommendation is take a picture of it, print it out, whatever, do whatever you need to do to secure it. Okay. So, yeah, it's the only way. And that's going to create chaos. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm sure that they're going to get complaints because, I mean, I mean, to be able to take that amount of calls when people could easily just go into a Sabor and, oh, okay, this was paying three, this was paying 2.5, right? And they're going to create havoc for our industry, in my opinion.
What about when I've seen where sellers have in the notes, uh, seller is paying 2.5%, you know, for whatever, like, uh, what's it called? When you're giving
Concessions?
the concession, yeah.
Yes, well, it's kind of like Open Door. They had come out and said, we're not paying compensation. It was zero. All we're paying is a 2.65 credit to the buyer for their closing costs. So absolutely, you can put that out there. Absolutely. So once again, it's going to be the responsibility of the agent to confirm, verify, document your compensation prior to you showing the home. Also, what I'm thinking is maybe we can have like an appointment with the client and go over there, you say that maybe get signed the short form, and then you start looking for before if they are going to pay compensation or not. Well, that's actually one of the questions on your buyer's orientation. Mr. Buyer, we're getting ready to start our journey. I mean, and of course, there's changes in the industry. Now, are you in a position to pay your down payment, your closing costs, and there might be a chance that you might have to pay part of my compensation? I'm a master negotiator. I'm going to protect your interests. I'm first going to get it from these three buckets, from the seller, from the builder, in sales concessions. And then number four, you might have to make up a small difference. Are you okay with me exposing you to those listings? They're not a problem. How much are you talking about? Maybe a point you're looking at 200,000, maybe 2,000. Oh, okay, I can handle that. As long as it's not six, that means it's all the compensation on a $200,000 home. You're going to have to ask the right question before you get him in your car and before you show the home, expose him to that house. Because the last thing, and it happened to somebody in this office, that she didn't look at MLS and it said zero. That was open door. And then the client fell in love with the house. Well, did you not look at the list? Was my response. It's your responsibility to look, to do your due diligence to make sure that you're going to get compensated. Yes, sir.
Now, in dealing with open door, obviously we're pursuing the same way, right?
Mhm.
But what's in the feedback? Are they responding? Are they answering?
Well, what it is that there, I mean, just in my phone's going off right now. I can tell you though, all of those are price improvements, right? If when the house is not selling, it's not moving, it's because of three things. Your price has been rejected by the marketplace.
Mhm,
Number two, you're not paying enough closing costs,
mhm.
or you're not offering to assist the buyer that's getting a 6.99 with a 5.99, right? That would allow them to afford the home, right? And then, of course, closing costs and everything to try to get into the table with the least amount of money. But if you're offering 2.5, guys, this isn't new. There's been brokers in this city for the last 10 years offering 2 and 2.5.
No, but
And guess what? The agents don't ever show up. The houses end up having 120, 180 days on market.
just kind of going back to open door themselves. I know you say it was zero. Were they did they come back and say, well, I'm not this one, or were they like just
But what it is that that is a because I think that that was a decision done by corporate office in preparation. Because here they were thinking that they were going to make more money or their bottom line was going to be higher. And that's one of the things that you have to convince your seller, Mr. Seller. If you need to be somewhere, like, if you're going to take a new job in California on September the 1st,
Mhm.
and you don't offer compensation for the buyer, how do you think you're going to get your house under contract? Because no doubt about it, guys, if there's one thing that a buyer's agent does, and that's the reason I tell people here, I don't know about other brokerages. If it is a weak agent because they're new and they don't know how to fill out the paperwork, and they're hey, I'm going to submit an offer, or hey, they submit a real bad offer where none of the blanks are filled out, but they have a pre-approval or a good funds letter, help them finish out the paperwork. Because the one thing they're bringing to you is a qualified buyer, whether it be cash or financing. Help them. That way you can go under contract, right? But once again, if you don't pay any compensation to the buyer in this marketplace, because no doubt about it, it is a buyer's market right now, with the market continuing to deteriorate. They're trying to do a number of things to avoid a recession. The lowering of the rate is a political decision, but the markets didn't react favorable on Monday. Okay. So once again, checks and balances, supply and demand principles. At the end of the day, inflation is still out of control. A lot of people are sitting it out. People have already renewed their leases. People are already starting to go back to work or to school in the next couple of weeks, and they're not going to make a move till next year. So what's going to end up happening is that there's going to be inventory, but at the same time, guys, this is going to be a perfect opportunity. I have a lady that's tied to a lease till January. And she said, "Do you think I should be buying a house right now?" I was like, "Absolutely, yes." Because next year, when the rates even get lower, people get off the benches, it's going to be a dogfight. You're going to end up paying more. You're not going to get any closing costs, and you might have to pay your realtor. Right now, you can buy the house that you want and need at a good price, because I'm seeing price reductions asking for ten and $12,000 in closing costs. And oh, by the way, they're offering a bonus. Okay. So when you guys call me, your listing's not moving, I always tell you three things: lower the price because your price has been rejected by the marketplace. Number two, offer additional concessions. And number three, offer a bonus to the buyer's agent. There's no incentive like the financial one. You want to get your house sold? Do all three. If you're going to do a $15,000 price reduction, lower the price five, offer 5,000 more in closing costs, and then offer a $5,000 bonus. If you're like at half a million or 800, that's how I would structure it. Okay. So cover the short form.
On compensation not being on MLS
Mhm.
and it be on showing form?
No,
Oh,
no.
one thing that I had seen, can they put it in the lockbox? Can you put a sticky say 3% buyer's commission in the market.
Why would I get in my car in 100-degree weather and drive all the way to Castroville or Hondo or La Vernia or Alamo Heights? Why would I get in my car?
Well, let's just assume we're gonna assume. I
Uh-huh.
don't like to assume, but let's say that hey, you've been phoning the agent, you've been texting them, and calling because we know that but listing agents don't answer the phone and don't respond.
Mhm.
If you've got an adamant buyer that says, "Rudy, I like this house,"
Well, the way that they're expecting it to be handled is that the broker and the listing agent's websites will have to be equipped with compensation. It just can't be on showing time and it can't be on MLS, anything where it's tied to the multiple listing service because that's one of the agreements in the lawsuit. So website, they're working on our website right now. And then if you have a website through us, through KV Core,
they can put it on this.
exactly. Okay. And then we're even thinking about even having an Excel for all of your listings. So what's good, guys, you guys can't be uploading your paperwork at the very end. You need to upload it at the beginning. Like once again, you're not going to be able because we need to verify that you had a short form buyer's rep agreement or a long form buyer's rep agreement before you went under contract. But now you have to carry your paperwork the first 5 to 10 days that you go under contract. Because if you turn in the paperwork and you don't have a buyer's rep agreement, and you collect the compensation and you never establish the client relationship, you're in direct violation of the NAR settlement.
What about the broker? What about the broker between brokers? Is that like, does that have to be loaded?
Well, what it is that no doubt about it. One establishes the client relationship, whether you do the BRA short form or long form, right? But the compensation agreement between brokers, if you're able to get it signed, and if they're accessible, you want to nip it in the bud. Hey, I'm showing houses on Friday. I might be able to send you an offer on Sunday. Hey, but I'm going to send you over the compensation agreement. I'm not seeing the compensation on your website. Hey, I just DocuSigned it over to you. Can you fill it out? Because I need to have it in my file so that way I can submit it. In the event you're in the top three, uh, I already know what the compensation is. 'Cause I didn't see it on your website, and your receptionist doesn't know anything. You know, right? That's the reality of it, right? Nobody picks up at your organization. Okay, so once again, we're gonna have to tweak with it. Uh, I'm sure that something will happen with technology will where they will need to figure something out because I feel like we're going backwards with technology because then you guys are already busy enough. Your job is to go out and get the business, and now you're having a oh my goodness, I've gotten 20 texting on my listing that just went live. I don't have time to answer all of these. Can you like go to my website? You know, right? It's going to be overwhelming initially.
So, just you mentioned the compensation agreement between the companies made in line four. It's
Mhm.
that the terms of this agreement committed starts on June 27th. So I'm assuming if you're gonna fill that out in the beginning, let's say I represent the summer. And we go under contract June 27th. Well, we know that we have a 30-day closing, and so we probably be closing for this Wednesday. Would it be
Mhm.
safe to say that the closing date should be listed in the second part?
Honestly, it doesn't matter at that point. The purpose of this form is for you to actually document the compensation through the other brokerage. Okay.
And the reason I asked that is because let's say they added either, let's say July 27th, 2024, and December 30th, 2024.
Mhm.
We went out of contract because we couldn't negotiate.
Mhm.
So there's an agreement that says you still pay a commission, right?
Absolutely. Well, what ends up happening, I use those dates for informational purposes. I wouldn't put 30 days. You probably need to do 4 months or 6 months through the end of the year, do 12/31, just to give you enough time.
So let's
Okay.
say we get out of contract with this deal.
Mhm.
This agreement can't come back and bite me in the rear saying, hey, there's a commission that needs to be paid because we have an agreement that you're gonna pay till December 31st.
I know, but the compensation isn't paid if you didn't close.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
It doesn't obligate you unless the deal consummates. Okay. It's just confirmation of what the compensation is being offered. Okay. So
Going back to the buyer's gap,
uh-huh.
if you have a client that doesn't want to pay the commission, and those that do, not some that do pay the commission,
Mhm.
once it's done, one of the buyers find out that you didn't even see that out because of that reason, plus someone's going to go into that listing agent directly.
So our agent wouldn't expose them to that property, and then they decide to go directly through that listing, right? Okay. Well, what ends up happening is that a number of things happen. Remember, you're going to do a buyer's orientation, and you're going to interview them. So, Mr. Buyer, you're telling me you only have your down payment and closing costs. If you have to pay my compensation, are you in a position to pay it? Don't get them to tell you no. Because then remember, you could still get it from the seller, the builder, in concessions from the builder or the seller. And you do it all the time, Rudy. You do it all the time. And on your deal, you collected $10,000 in closing costs the other day, and then like 1,600 of it went to cover your transaction fee and then other fees that you charge, right? So I hate to call you out like that, but once again, real live example. You already were our master negotiator. You negotiated 10,000, 12,000. Hey, and in special provisions, that's the reason that I'm putting on there. I'm like, hey, on the buyer's rep agreement, it states that it comes from the builder, it comes from the seller, it comes from sales concession. If not, you have to make up the difference, right? So that's the reason that you need to clearly outline that on the contract, because that's the reason that we're needing to do the QC the moment you go under contract, because guess who's driving the CD these days, guys? It's the lender. It's not even the title company. The title company gets your CDA. They don't even look at it. They'll look at the contract and go, it's 3%, but they don't, now they're going to have to look at buyer's rep agreements. Hey, you agree to pay 4% plus my $500. Well, we're going to have to get the CDA to you. You have to bless it, and then you have to deliver it to title and to your lender, because your lender needs to know that that $10,000 or $12,000 that you negotiated for your buyer, that 1% comes to you. Okay.
And the other thing, if your client tell you, okay, I'm going to, if they don't pay commission, I'm going to pay you the commission. And at the final, when you the contract, no, I don't have enough money. Why don't you continue?
I mean, I'll be really honest with you. Our forms aren't
Hey, good, just for everybody, can we take post-dated checks?
well, what ends up happening is this: is that that's the reason that when you do your buyer's orientation, you need to tell them you need to bring in your income, your assets, your credit. We need to get you pre-qualified, and those are the conversations that you need to have with your lender. Because once again, there has to be full transparency, because we're expecting, because you're going to be negotiating concessions, whether it be conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, and some people in this room are master negotiators that they're going to guarantee their compensation. We have a lot of agents, guys, that charge way more than three. They charge three plus the $500. They charge four plus the 500. I mean, we have agents. There's an agent that does commercial and farmer. He charges 6%. It doesn't matter what the story is. Okay. So,
But he had a real good question. So, hey, you got a buyer, they're not gonna pay you commission. So, Mr. Buyer, we're gonna go look at these houses. And then let's just say they go behind your back and they go to the listing agent and they get under contract with him. Didn't you procure the buyer?
you did.
Can we do
You,
anything?
you did, but if they're not paying the compensation. So now if they mention it to you,
Mhm.
and especially in this market, no doubt about it, guys. Right now, sellers are entering listing agreements thinking I'm the seller and I have the power. But no,
Yeah.
with rates being what they are, they're in direct competition with builders. They're going to find out very quickly that it's a buyer's market, not a seller's market. Okay. So what ends up happening is that those are the conversations that you need to have with your buyer. Because if they mention to you, hey, there's a house that went under, uh, they just posted the sign across the street from my mother's house. Hey, what's the address? Is there a phone number? Let me do some due diligence and let me get back with you. I'd be going out there and be talking to this for sale by owner,
Yeah.
and then there is an agreement between the broker and the owner. Mr. Owner, I have a highly qualified buyer or a cash buyer, but I'll bring them to you and I'll expose them to your house. But I need you to sign this agreement between our brokerage and you as the owner. But you will pay me compensation. So even though you're initial,
Zero.
they told you that no, I mean, folks, no, sometimes they don't even know. I closed a deal here recently. The guy had been at Caterpillar for 15 years. He was acting like he didn't have any money. So he said, oh, yeah, it's coming from 401k. And then when he sent me his 401k statement, because his bank statement didn't have any money, the guy had over $150,000. So at that moment, your conversations with your lender are, hey, Make sure that he takes money out of wherever he's going to get a gift or where he's going to pull it out of. So that way he covers his down payment, his closing costs, and my compensation if they do go with somebody that's not offering compensation.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. So then at that point, 0% commission, okay, I've got the buyer, Mr. Seller, pay me, I'm not gonna pay you. Well, then you know what? The house is at 400,000, I'm gonna go up to 415 and pay me my commission.
Absolutely.
And so what if at that point they still want to negotiate and say, no, we're not gonna pay you? I mean, that would be messed up.
Well, what it is that you're rolling into the sales price. Why are they going to care?
Correct.
I mean, at that point, I'm hoping that the for sale by owner realizes you're not paying my compensation. We're rolling it into the sales price. It's not going to cost you anything. Okay, or a regular listing. Okay, because what's going to happen when the market shifts again, we're going to see people offering above asking, zero in closing costs, waiving appraisal, waiving home inspection, waiving everything. Okay.
We put it up in price, now we're gonna go back to the gamble, is it gonna make appraisal,
Okay.
right? And then so.
In this marketplace, properties aren't appraising because the market's deteriorating by the day.
Right.
But in the future, when it starts to go up, properties will appraise.
So
Okay.
if it doesn't appraise, what happens then? I mean,
You have to negotiate. You have to negotiate. You have to renegotiate.
Asking price, and then at that point, that's when you're negotiating.
Yes, you're gonna. If there's one thing that you guys are gonna have to do in this marketplace is become better negotiators. It boils down to that. For closing costs, reduce the price, and everything else. I mean, I just closed up a deal for some friends of mine where the listing agent wanted 345 because that's what they paid for the house 2 years ago because they got crazy and overbid and did all that other stuff. And they were obviously upside down. The seller, the day of closing, had to come to the table with over $45,000 because then in less than 2 years they were already selling. So what ended up happening is that I sent an offer. I sent them my CMA. Hey, here's an offer for 299. We're not asking for any closing costs, but we're not paying 345 because it's not going to appraise. My people need a loan. So here's the offer at 299. The MLS data reflects that it's going to appraise at 299. Sure enough, it appraised at 299. We didn't ask for closing costs and da 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 da. So 2 weeks before closing, we got a hailstorm. And then all of a sudden, what ended up happening, I called the agent, say, hey, I hate to do this to you or whatever. My buyer is concerned about the hail we got through the weekend. Can you get your seller to get an insurability letter, make sure that the roof is okay? And all of a sudden, she calls me 4 days later, telling me, okay, your people are going to get a new roof. Will they pay it? Will they pay the deductible? Because it's $16,000 and then another 4,000 in deductible. I call my buyer, which I was doing their loan as well, because they're friends of mine. And they said, "What do you mean? I'm going to get a 35-year dimensional roof, brand spanking new, and all I have to do is pay $4,000? I'll take it." You never know. You never know. People will take out their wallet and write you a check, right? So into the future, you're going to have to establish relationships. You have to set expectations. And then, of course, you need to add value, all the things that you're going to do for them. But it's your responsibility to do the due diligence up front. Don't call me after hours or on the weekend telling me, Rudy, can you help me? My people fell in love with this house and they're not offering any compensation. The first thing I'm going to ask is, do you have a buyer's rep agreement? Okay. Number one. Number two, did you know that we're not offering any compensation? No, I didn't know. I just got in my car and showed them the house. I'm like, well, that's your fault.
Yes.
Okay. You need to be strategic. Do not expose your clients, your qualified buyers to builders or sellers where you might not get compensated. Secure your compensation first. Because, like I said, you're not discriminating, you're not redlining, you're not steering. Because when you're having that conversation, you haven't even mentioned a zip code or a school district. You mentioned, or the purpose of the meeting is if I'm going to actually, if you and I are going to be a good fit. If I decide to take you on as a client, these are my expectations, right? So don't let the buyer control the transaction. You control it. You guys are the real estate professionals. Okay. So cover the compensation agreement between broker and owner, compensation between brokers. You would want to get that signed. And then, of course, the long form buyer's representation agreement. Like I said, you always want to check off intermediary because then that exposes your buyer to our inventory quicker and faster because you might take on the listing on Monday. It might not go live till Friday, and we might already have it under contract while the seller decides to declare. Um, if you will do up to 3 or 4% on the in the existing market, 7A, and then if you will do up to 8% if you want for new homes, line item 7E1, additional compensation, number one, construction.
Would you repeat that one?
Well, what it is that on page 2 of 5 of the long form,
Okay.
page 2 of 5 of the long form,
Oh.
I give you an example of up to 3% and then up to 5% of the sales price on new construction. I would go ahead and throw in 4 on the existing market, and then I would go up to 8%. Remember, guys, that if it's a trade transaction and all that stands for is FHA, VA, USDA, A paper conventional, the common products that a normal buyer uses, full doc, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. That is a TRID loan. It's a paper. Those are loans that are either guaranteed by the government or by Fannie or Freddie. So what ends up happening is that the max compensation allowable on the settlement statement or the closing disclosure is 8%. But when you do farm and ranch, you do land, there's no limit on the compensation. We've been involved in commercial deals where it was 12%. Okay. But if you're involved in an FHA, VA, USDA convention, that's the reason DL Holdings offering 7. They don't want to max you out at 8, but they're offering 7, right? So um, I did want to cover on special provisions that if you guys are working out of, and this is page 4 or 5 on the long form, if you're working with somebody, an investor that's making you do all of this work from out of town, you've never met them, you've never seen them, or it's a Mexican national that wants to fly in and thinks that you're some glorifying tour guide, collect a retainer fee. Okay, you can collect whatever. If they're going to come in here to buy $1 million home, collect a $2,500, $5,000 retainer fee. Hey, if you're going to buy, it's not a problem. I'll credit to you at closing. But if you don't end up buying anything, well, I collected the retainer fee that I get to keep because I blocked out my time on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to attend to your needs and your family, and I put my family and my clients here locally aside. So you guys can collect retainer fees for people that are, they're going to be difficult to work with. You don't know their level of motivation. It's usually out of town buyers that they want somebody to drive them around and expose them to the city. But don't be that glorified tour guide that spends their gasoline and their time and wines them and dines them, and then you don't collect any money. I'm not going to cover the exclusive right to sell. The only thing I want to cover on the exclusive right to sell is the fact that on broker compensation, there is A and there is B, and it clearly dictates broker's fee with compensation for the other broker. So rather than put a dollar figure, put a percentage. Okay, because then you would have to revise it every time if you lower the sales price. So always do percentages. Same thing with if they decide not to pay, that would be section B. Okay. 5A is a seller wants to pay, and 5B, the seller is unwilling to pay.
What is it, thank you?
It is it's on the exclusive right to list, and it's page 2 out of 11. But just know this, guys, like in our office, you always want to encourage intermediary, and then you want to negotiate the power of numbers, negotiate from a position of strength. So my suggestion is to collect compensation 6, 7, and 8. Don't do 3, 4, and 5 and 6. Do 6, 7, and 8. Full services at 8, great service at 7, and regular services at 6. Yeah, 6, 7, and 8. If you start low, you're going to get low. Right? Hey, I thought I didn't have to pay this compensation. I know, but you're not just paying me, you're paying the 200 other people that are part of my army. Because we're not a broker that has 2 people in it. We're a brokerage that has 200 people. And they're going to help me. I'm going to mobilize them. And I definitely want to get them paid because what happens if they bring a qualified buyer? Right? So Uh-huh.
On that scene, you're talking about it's the item, sorry, the Form 1101
Mm-hmm.
for number five. That's not the right amount, right? For just more like the 4,000.
Well, I'm just using, well, when it isn't thinking about it, I'd rather you just put a percentage. Don't confuse it because then, so you see, we have to work on our presentation. If you show the seller 6%, they won't freak out. But if you show them $12,000, it's one or the other, not both. So I recommend you put in a percentage and do not put a dollar fee. Once again, be strategic. Collect your retainer fee.
Then it would be better to percentage because you drop twice and it kind of changes that number.
Exactly, correct. Yeah, it simplifies everything down the road. Because technically, you're supposed to amend the list.
Mark,
Yes. I mean, does anybody else have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I saw this listing on the
Mhm.
from August 20, there could be a no compensation requirement, eliminate the compensation requirement and prohibit offers in emergency listing, something like that. This one. It is the same as this one, right?
Well, what it is that they're telling you, because there was a lawsuit, right? And then every board has to implement policy to be in compliance with that lawsuit. So they're telling you what you can and cannot do. So you cannot have compensation on showing time, and you cannot have it on MLS. You cannot have it in associated docs. You cannot have it in the comments. The only thing that I'm understanding, and I'm going to go to a class myself tomorrow, because there's an attorney that's going to teach it at Capitol Padua at City View, is if buyer's representation will come. It doesn't reference an amount or a percentage, right? So you see what I mean? So we're going to have to get strategic. Okay, well, great. Well, buyer's representation will come. There's a chance that I'm going to get paid. Now you still need to pick up the phone. You still need to text. You need to still log on to their website, right?
So that means sometimes what I'm understanding is on the Sable listing shows that the buyer compensation is
As of today, it's still there. It's telling you that on the 14th, it will no longer be there. Okay.
take it out.
They're going to take it out. They're going to purge it on every listing, and which is going to create havoc. Okay. They had till the 17th to be in compliance because we're already on extension. But Sable decided to do the cutoff on the 14th. They're policing themselves. Okay. So the cutoff date at Sable is the 14th. Okay. There will no longer be any compensation. Amount, percentage, none of that.
How about on the agents emails? You cannot.
No. No. It cannot be in comments, agent comments, buyer comments. It can't be anywhere. It cannot be in associated docs where you upload compensation agreement. You can't, because it's also going to say an amount or a percentage. No, there cannot be any percentage or an amount on the multiple listing service and anything that is tied to it on their feed, which includes showing time.
Only
Okay.
on the website, only on the brokerage website.
And the agent website. Mhm.
The
You as my agent and on our broker website. Yes,
could be, this is the only place that you can find it.
correct,
Or to still go there.
Correct.
Gina,
correct.
double check with me the compensation.
Yeah.
Maybe by phone you.
I mean, how many calls can you take in a day? It's going to be difficult.
No, what I'm thinking is how can if we can take seriously your call to an agent and they didn't tell
People don't want to answer the phone anymore. When they call here for you guys, asking, well, I'm calling for Eddie Gonzalez or Georgina. I'm like, hey, this is her phone number. Please call her. Please text her as to the purpose of your call or what listing. She might be with clients or she might be driving. When she becomes available, she'll return your call.
You could do a voicemail. We could read a voice message with your
Mhm.
listing and
Mhm.
or and then auto text.
Oh yeah,
You know, like
absolutely.
that.
Yep.
But also you can put You said it's okay to put representation welcome on your listing.
You can, but it doesn't say the amount. What happens if it's 1% rather than 3%, and you get all, oh, I'm going to go show this property. It's $1 million home, and you're getting 1 point. You still, it is the responsibility of the agent to verify the compensation and send over the compensation agreement between brokers. That way, you're protecting your compensation. Because if they took the time to sign this, you know, PAR or TREC form, um, you're doing way better than most other agents. Trust me, guys. There's a lot of agents that don't even know what and how all that's going to take place. By the time that they realize it, oh well. And God forbid that you provide your buyer's rep agreement to the title company. It says zero, no compensation. Because there's agents right now that don't even know how to fill out the forms throughout the city.
So that means we send for the buyer's agent. So before sending offer, then we have to send but the picture is communicated between brokers before that.
Now, the way I would work it is, hey, it's Thursday, it's Wednesday. I'm going to show your listing on Saturday or Sunday. I might bring you an offer, but I'm needing you to sign this form before I show your house. And then and then if they won't fill it out and get it to you, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to cancel the listing because you never confirmed the compensation. Trust me. I'm sure that they'll text you.
I think that no, most of the people never hear if you grounded on your voices. I think even if you have an auto text, maybe it says 5 days. I think they're the most secure one. The buyer,
Well, whatever you do, make sure you don't delete the text and make sure you print it out. That way it's part of your package. Because trust me, there's a lot of agents that are going to go, I'm not going to pay you 3, I'm going to pay you 2. I can see that going down on that's what happens in small towns. Is that they collect 6, but then they only pay 2 to the buyer's agent, and the listing agent keeps 4. That's what happens in rural areas. So once again, do your due diligence, become master negotiators, know the paperwork, start with the short form, transition to the long form, and do up to 4% in the existing market, up to 8% in the new construction, because you don't know if you're going to be involved for a day or for 2 years of your life. So once again, be very, very strategic on what houses you expose your clients to. Like I said, you're not doing anything else except dictating your client relationship and how you're running your business. Okay. Alrighty, guys. Does anybody else have a question?
Then simply going back to, they want to terminate you just to go around you back to go to the listing again, that's in bike stage.
Yeah, that already is happening these days. People find out that their brother, sister, cousin, niece, whatever, coworker is an agent, and you know, but that's the reason that you have to have a retainer fee written in there. Okay, I'll terminate you, but I need you to have a protection period of 60 days. It just happened to an agent in this office. She had $1,000 retainer fee, and we wouldn't cancel the listing unless the seller paid for the $1,000. And he fought it, and he fought it, and he fought it. In that case, your listing you have signed with us is through the end of December. We can just withdraw the listing. But if you don't want to pay these $1,000 to the agent that did drone pictures and took professional pictures, she needs to get reimbursed for her expenses. We're not releasing it. We'll withdraw the listing. But there, you signed this exclusive right to list with a $1,000 early termination fee. So sure enough, he paid it. Okay. Same thing with the buyers. Write a retainer fee. Collect that retainer fee. Like I said, I'm going to collect 1,500, 2,500, $5,000 because you're looking to buy a mansion. If you're going to buy, I'll credit it to you, no problem at closing because you have every intent to buy, right? But if you don't buy, I get to keep your money as liquidated damages. That's what a builder does. Okay. And that's what attorneys do. Hey, I'm going to keep your initial deposit as, or your retainer fee because I did all of this work and then you reconciled with your wife and now you don't want to get a divorce, but I spent time on your file.
So you asked for retainer fee. You're saying ask for it up front?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can send them a square invoice. That way they can pay it via PayPal, American Express, whatever. Clint will send it out. We just need to know about it. There's an invoice in our portal.
This is what I'm going to ask you. If you have an invoice,
Everything that you need, guys, it's in the portal. It is.
okay.
Spend some time there.
If they say, well, never see, okay. So would you say, like, depending on the price of the house, like if it's $250,000 house, it's $500 rather than 1,000, or would you just?
I mean, if they're an out of town buyer,
Mhm.
15,
Um,
especially if you're going to work with them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you put your clients to the side. You're going to miss family events and everything to give them the dog and pony, right?
yeah.
And then, so I would say, and then also, I mean, obviously you can run your business any way you want. But if you have a retainer fee of $500, say if you do buy that, you apply to. If you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy. There's no, even though they may spend more, but nobody wants to spend news for $100, right? I mean, I'll just buy it on my bike anyways. I'm gonna use $100.
It just keeps everybody honest.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. Any other question? Alrighty, guys. Have a good day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I will be covering USDA financing. It'll be a very brief class. I'm trying not to get too long-winded. Next week, I'm going to do condensed versions so that way you guys understand. Like, I'm just going to do the short form next Wednesday, and that's it. And that'll be 5 and 10 minutes, so that way you guys don't have to drive to the office. And then that way you can actually sit through 5 or 10 minutes. Okay.
Everybody thinks, the MLS.